Good morning. I'm going to show how we can use software which changes the names of your files in a batch processing method. And the reason to do this could be many, but one of them is if you travel, come back from a trip, and you have lots of files out of your camera, you could change in the front of that file, you could change and put a name that relates to your trip, and it would help you to know which images came from there. We also use this as part of the work we do when we go out for a volunteer organization and take photos. And the example currently is the Ride for Roswell. We all go out and take lots of pictures, and we come back, and before those pictures are put up on Flickr site, of course, we treat them and we resize them and everything, but we have a normal process of how we name those files so that they're useful to people looking for them later. So what I've done is I have opened up a bunch of images that I want to work with renaming, and I have my software for the Mac over here. I found some images that I want to change the name on. I select them, and then I drag any one of them and drag them into the original file name section. They're still sitting where they came from, but now I can play with their names and change them. The very first thing that I do is I have some options to hide the file extension. So I'm going to go into my options section, and both software will have available an option to hide extensions. And so when I do that, .jpg disappears. That means I can work on the end of the file and not be including the extension as part of the file name. It's very helpful. And then I have controls in the middle that allow me to do a lot of things. I can replace the first occurrence of something if it's in a file many times. I can replace all occurrences of a given set of file and make them something else. So if I had a Canon file, they all might start with IMG. And if that's the case, I would want to replace all occurrences of IMG with something meaningful, a trip name or a route on the Ride for Roswell. So if I'm going to replace all occurrences of, and here I tell them, what are they looking for? I'm just going to take the word celebration because that happens to be what I have there. And you see how what it's done over here? It's taken the two that had that name and it's removed it. I already have an underscore, so I don't have to add one. All I want to do is replace these letters. So I come over here, and let's say I'm going to say park. Doesn't matter what you say. It could be, in Roswell, it could have been UB, could have been UB start line, could have been whatever code you want. I just said, well, this I took at a park. So immediately, the word celebration is replaced every place it occurs with the word park. If I had had the word celebration twice in that and I only wanted to change the first one, then I would have used replace first occurrence. But usually I only have those digits once. If I had an original file and it started with IMG, if I just remove the IMG, I still have an underscore. If I remove the IMG underscore, then I've got to replace the underscore. You want the parts of a file name not to run together. And one of the reasons is that they're easier to read. And on our situation in Flickr, when people search file names, they need that separation to accurately search for what's in the name. I can't do another function till I use this one. So it says rename. And when I click rename, that change occurs. Now I can make another change. So in between each of these operations, you have to apply it or it will ignore it. So now I'm going to go and say append. And I'm going to append. Now I've learned it's going to be an underscore in my name, and it tests it. So before you click and make it final, you get to look, is that what I wanted to do? Yes, I wanted all of the files to have my name at the end. So I then click rename, and it applies that. And now I can make another change. One of the ones that I sometimes use is prepend, which means if I want to add something in front of the entire file name, that means I don't want to replace anything. I just want to add something in front of that file name, then I go to prepend. And if I were to come and say, I want to prepend in the front of that test underscore, I get to look at it. I get to see that I did what I want and I separated it. And when it's correct, I rename it. And when the rename is changed, you'll notice the change occurs where you took the image from. So whatever changes you make, you can go through and change them and they will affect your thing. So you notice you can change everything like I did with prepend and append. I could choose a word that I wanted to substitute for, and that only worked on the files that had that word. And I could also control, if I have lots of them, normally I have like 50 or 100 I'm doing at once. And it works just as well at 100 as it does at 4. But if I try to make it so that I'm going to treat them all the same, it's much easier than picking and choosing which ones you want to work with. I simply bring them in, and I do all my changes, and then I could bring other ones in. But this will work on as many files as you want to change. So you can take the original files out of your camera and put them all in here. Just drag them from your hard drive into here and make any name change you want before you even work on the files. Or if you don't want, you can take your final ones that are the ones you're going to use and do those. But it's a very handy way to save the work of save as and go in and type all of the changes to a file name while you're saving an individual file. Things that are individual have to be done on each file. So if I had looked at that image and I had found the name of a writer on that one image, I had to enter that name in the file name of that one image. But anything which I want to do with a whole bunch of files, I can do all at once in renaming software. If you only want to change one file name, there's no reason to use a batch processor. You do that when you're working on the image because that particular image has a particular writer number. It's not in anything else. So individual changes still have to be done in the processing of that one image. But overall renaming changes, like adding your 3 initials, you'll notice I had done it earlier here. If you're working on the ride pictures, we ask you to put your 3-digit initials in that, somewhere in that image.
Or the root.
And then the root, if you had a start line at UB, it was UBS, I believe. So if these were all taken at the UB start line, I would have said, at this point, I would have said prepend. If I was replacing DSC or P something from a Olympus camera, or if I was getting rid of an IMC from mine, I would replace it. But if I just want to add the root in front, I use prepend, and I put down here, this would be UB start line, and after that, always a separator. And I find the best separator is an underscore. It's easier for your eye to spot, but a space will do the same thing. Okay, replace all occurrences. Okay, yes, of the word test underscore, because I want to get rid of that.
Take UBS out.
Yeah, and then empty this. Make this field empty. And now what it's done is it removed the characters test underscore and just took them out and left everything else. So using this means exploring some of these, there's a correct word for these, not controllers, but whatever. Learning how to use them. Let's say I have this and I want to get rid of the initials of MLF. So I would come up to here. I must first, I believe I have to go. Will it let me do 2 at once? No. I always rename between. Now I'm going to replace the characters MLF underscore. and get that off there. And you see how it removed it over here. So I can see that it's done it as I expected it to do it before I actually carry it out. So you can completely remove things, you can add, you can put them in the front, you can put them in the back. There are all kinds of good uses of this. But the ones I use are this replace all occurrences, append, prepend are the ones that I do. I have removed characters if I wanted to. There are other things. I actually sequenced files. You can take files here, and if you want them to sequence from 0, 1, and up, you can say that these pictures should go into a slideshow. Like if I've prepared images for a slideshow, and I want to number them for the slideshow, so they'll play in the right order, I put all of my slideshow images in here. Okay, prepend, and then I do that. I say, okay, rename them. Now I go in and I say sequence, and it opens a sub window. And I've got it like I did, and the sequence is like this. And you see it looks right now? Now that's if I have at least 100 images that I'm sequencing. If I only have 50, I'll only use 2 digits for it. And of course, then you look and say, did it actually change the files? It did. So one of the things of this I didn't think of before I got here this morning is this is another way I use it. I may work out a whole bunch of images, and I have them sorted manually in the order I want them to appear, and I want them to stay in that order when I use them. I could add numbering and sequence in the front. So that's another useful way. But you will, if you use this, you will discover things that you are doing over and over and over again in file naming, and some of them can be done with this. If you're going to use your images to make a photo book and you want to be sure you get them in the right order, give them a number order before you build the book, and then you don't have to worry whether you got them right. Yes, okay. So I find this is it's a freebie, and I find it quite useful. Now, what do I do at the end? I unclick Hide Extensions, and I got my extension back. Okay? So I hide it because I don't want to play around with the extensions. I just want to play around with the name of the file. When I'm done, I get rid of that Hide Extensions, and I am back in business back over here. So keep it in mind for if you're working on the ride for Roswell, it's very useful. But if you aren't doing that, it wouldn't hurt you to download the free and install it. And then someday something will come along and you'll say, ooh, I could use that.